So when it comes to connected devices, it's important to consider things like the size of the device. We've worked quite extensively with clients looking at how big those devices could be. You don't want those devices to be big and bulky. If it's a wearable, it needs to be light and agile. And that's one thing that has been achievable in the last few years to make these devices quite light. Looking at battery life and charge time, obviously with any device that you do have, you don't really want it to have to be charged a lot. So a lot of the time when you're creating healthcare devices or wearables, ultimately you'd want to look at that battery life and make sure that it can be drawn out as long as possible without having to recharge or replace the battery. So also how disruptive that is to a patient's day. That's quite an important piece there. So if a wearable is really disruptive and it's taking a long time or longer than it would otherwise to do that task or get that information, ultimately it's not achieving the purpose that's set out to do. So it should be simple. Wearables should be simple, whether that's something that's a device that goes on your inhaler, or if you're an asthma patient, or a watch. So it's the replacement of your everyday watch, which also provides more intelligence. And also how the data gathering makes the user feel. Sometimes people, and we'll go into data and security in a few slides, sometimes people can feel quite insecure about sharing their personal data and where that personal data goes and how that's tracked and then fed back to the users is quite important. Also, a final quite often overlooked aspect there is design and usability. So that's quite an important piece of the development process that we usually have in projects. So we're thinking about, okay, how is this going to be really usable for that individual? Design and usability are very important when you're particularly when you're introducing new health tech wearables into the market.